If you've ever wondered why George A. Romero's 1968 horror classic, Night of the Living Dead, seems to be everywhere, why it's been remade and remixed so many times, why references to the film seem to go beyond homage, and why it's playing in the background of nearly every low-budget indie horror film, it's because of a mistake made on this shot of the opening credits. And it's that one mistake that gave birth to an entirely new subgenre of horror that would eventually grow into the multi-billion-dollar zombie industry it is today. You see, prior to Romero's work, zombies were very different from what we know now, typically only found in Haitian voodoo folklore as living beings enslaved by a supernatural power. Ideas that were explored in the early 1940s with films like Jacques Tourneur's I Walked with a Zombie.
Zombies, to me, were, those boys in the Caribbean who, do the wet work for Lugosi. And I thought I was creating a completely new monster. The neighbors suddenly turned into flesh eaters, ghouls, and that's what I called them, ghouls, in the film. And I thought they were completely new.
And after the film's release, the ghouls became the new zombies, and the new zombies no longer belong to Romero. And that's due to the fact that under the old Copyright Act of 1909, this little symbol was the only thing standing between owning your work and not owning your work. Which is why nearly every film up into the late 1970s had that symbol clearly affixed to the title or credit sequence, something that Night of the Living Dead does not have. And that's because after the film was completed, Romero's production company Image 10 made a distribution deal with the Walter Reed organization, who suggested that the title be changed to Night of the Living Dead from its original title, Night of the Flesh Eaters. And this was to avoid confusion over Jack Curtis's 1964 film called The Flesh Eaters. Romero agreed and the name was changed, but the Walter Reed organization mistakenly omitted the notice of copyright from the revised title card. And under the Copyright Act of 1909, the first public display of your work without the symbol, word, or abbreviation of copyright and the year of publication meant that you lost your copyright forever, and the work becomes part of the public domain. And those requirements were stripped back under the Copyright Act of 1976, but Night of the Living Dead was released 8 years before those laws went into effect. But the film's entry into the public domain became the ultimate distribution tool by virtue of the fact that it was openly available for every theater, UHF station, and video store to license for free. And its ubiquity led to zombie movies becoming the dominant genre for low-budget independent film. Night of the Living Dead provided a template for young aspiring filmmakers to follow and expand on, one of the few entries into the public domain that was still fresh and ready to be explored. If Romero's copyright mistake had been caught before distribution, he would have not only retained the rights to his film, but also have exclusive rights to the idea of the zombie as we know it today. The concept of a slow-moving, flesh-eating, ambulatory corpse would have been protected as his intellectual property. Even though Romero didn't originally create the zombie, he gave them a distinct set of rules and physical attributes, and alterations to existing work within the public domain can be protected under copyright. You can see this type of copyright protection being enforced through Universal with Frankenstein's monster. When most people think of Mary Shelley's classic creature, the image that probably comes to mind is Boris Karloff's green skin, flat-top skull, protruding forehead, and bolted neck. But the description of the character in Shelley's original novel was much more vague, describing only a yellow-skinned man with black hair and lips. And even though Frankenstein has been in the public domain for over a century, Universal still holds exclusive rights to those alterations made for James Whale's film in 1931. And the threat of copyright infringement looms over anyone outside of Universal wanting to adapt that character. Universal even filed suit against Mad Magazine for this cover from 1964, asking for an injunction against further distribution and $250 for each individual infringement, with well over 1 million copies being sold. And pricey legal battles like that are why Christopher Lee as Frankenstein's monster and Hammer's 1957 retelling looks so much different, and why I, Frankenstein is just Aaron Eckhart with scars. Romero could have easily had a similar stranglehold on zombies as Universal does with its monsters, had it not been for that initial copyright mistake. The 1909 Act allowed for protection for a period of 28 years from the date of publication, with an option of renewal for a second term of equal value, which meant that 1968's Night of the Living Dead wouldn't have been submitted into the public domain until 2024. And with the Mickey Mouse effect on copyright extension, there's a possibility zombies could have stayed out of the hands of the public for many more years after that, which would mean no Shaun of the Dead, no Thriller, no Resident Evil, and no Game of Thrones. Every zombie film, television show, video game, and comic can be directly traced back to George Romero. Walking Dead creator Robert Kirkman even originally intended his book to be titled Night of the Living Dead, because he assumed the name recognition would boost sales, and he was free to do so because the film is in public domain. And I think that's what makes Romero's work so special. Even in a sea of copycats, with every up-and-comer using his intellectual property as their own, he was still able to tell original, thought-provoking stories that stood out from the rest right until the end. And to this day, the 3 best zombie films continue to be Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Day of the Dead. So if you haven't seen the masterpiece that started it all, you can watch it online, download it for free, even package and resell it if you like. So go share it, dub it, remix or remake it, learn from it, get inspired, and make Romero's hard work worthwhile. And if you'd like to learn more about copyright law, I'd recommend checking out Information Doesn't Want to Be Free: Laws for the Internet Age from this week's sponsor, Blinkist. Blinkist is a digital learning app that distills key insights from the world's best-selling nonfiction books into information packs you can listen to in just 15 minutes or read on your favorite device. Blinkist was created to help you fit learning into any moment of the day. And with 2,200 books in Blinks and 40 new titles added each month, Blinkist is the perfect option for helping you vet books before you buy them, refreshing your memory of previous books you've read, or helping you discover titles and writers you've never heard of. Blinkist starts at just $49.99 for an entire year, but by signing up at Blinkist.com/CaptainChristian or using the link in the description, you'll get 20% off a new subscription, or you can just try out Blinkist for free right now. So head on over to Blinkist today, expand your horizons, and uncover subjects you never knew you loved.